So you want to start getting high quotas in Lethal Company. Well, this video is perfect for you. These 10 tips I will be sharing are the same ones we use to get the world record quota for vanilla and also high quotas like these. And if you find any tip on this list useful, don't be afraid to leave a sub. And while we're on that subject, you guys absolutely crushed the last goal of 1,000 subs. So going into the new year, the new goal is going to be 10K subs. And if you didn't know, I stream my high quota runs on here and also on Twitch. So if you want to see some of the gameplay live, the link will be in the description below. Now, if you are trying to get high quota runs, I feel like you should already have a basic knowledge of the game. And if you don't already, you can head over to the wiki. The link is in the description below. And over there, you can find about anything dealing with Lethal Company, from monsters to moon layouts to how many shovel hits it takes to kill a monster. It's a lot of really useful information that's going to help you out during your run. And once you got your basic game knowledge, what you want to have with your team is a good game plan. Now, during the world record run, we used a 2-2 split game plan. And that means 2 people went to the main door and 2 people went to the fire exit. Now, what we did is we looted for about 4 hours, and then 1 person from each group would go and confirm the loot, which means they take it back to the ship just to make sure no matter what happens, we have that. Then as the day gets later, 1 person stays on the ship and monitors the terminal, just to make sure even if all hell breaks loose in there, you got 1 person that can get you out so you don't lose your run. And this worked for us because we were playing vanilla, which means you can only have 4 people max. But some people like to play with 5, 6, 7, and if you go up in players, your game plan could change. You have a lot more people, which means you could get a lot more scrap easier and decrease the risk of losing your run as long as you have 1 person stay in the ship and monitor the terminal. But no matter how many players you have, having a basic idea of what you guys want to accomplish and how you're going to get it done is ultimately going to make getting a higher quota a lot easier. Now, it's also good to mention is maybe having a backup plan in case things don't go as planned, because all it takes is 1 little weather condition on your primary moon that you go to. So you call an audible and go to another moon that you're not really that familiar with, and then things happen, everyone dies, and then runs over. So yeah, if your moon gets flooded, eclipsed, stormy, whatever the condition may be, have that backup plan. Now, the third tip is knowing your moons and knowing the risk and reward for each one. Like, I always have a lot of people like in the live streams or on a comment on the video asking why we pick Rend. And we picked it because from our experiences of going to Titan a lot, of going to Don a lot, and going to Rend, the one with the least risk is Rend. Now, it goes back to our strategy. We do a 2-2 split. Now, we would probably pick Don if we had like 1 more person so they could stay in the terminal and like deactivate all the turrets and mines and stuff like that for us. But because we don't have that extra person in the ship, we like to play it a lot safer. And Rend out of the 3 paid planets is the most safe. And it also has enough scrap on it that we can meet our daily average and stay on pace to hit our 10K quota. Now, Titan has a lot of loot on it, but the map is so much bigger and it has so many more mobs on it ever since the last update. And Don is perfectly good. It has a really close fire exit, but there's just so many turrets and mines and dangers that can mess up the run so fast. So after experiencing them all, we just said Rend is our primary, Don is our secondary, and if all else fails and it's the only option left, we'll go to Titan. Now, knowing your planets is one thing, but knowing the mobs and when to interact are a huge game changer for trying to hit a high quota run. Now, the 3 biggest run killers are Nutcrackers, Forest Giants, and Eyeless Dogs. You can always go back to the wiki if you want to learn how to deal with these things, but knowing when and how to interact and how to counter them is going to be what makes or breaks your run. Now, this next tip is one that usually everyone who's trying to attempt a high quota knows, but they sometimes tend to forget, and that's confirming loot. Now, a lot of groups that attempt these runs, they usually get loot that's like by doors and stuff, and they hurry up and put it outside. Then naturally to go back in, try to get more loot, and then place it outside, and then eventually take it to the ship. But sometimes people get carried away and they go in, they go too deep, and sometimes they end up dying. Now, if the moon gets a little too crazy and no one's able to go back and get that loot from that door and bring it to the ship, then honestly, you just did all that looting for nothing. And that's why I'm making sure someone, even if they have to leave from a really good spawn where you got a lot of loot items around you, they have to go and they have to go back to the ship, bring the items to the ship, and make sure you get that confirmed loot. And once you get these items to the ship, the next tip is going to be organizing. Now, I guess this isn't 100% needed, but it makes things a lot easier. Now, what we do is we have 1 person who organizes the entire ship based on loot, and we call them funds. So we have like a bell fund, a robot fund, a hairdryer fund. And when we're down on the quota and we need to dip it to the savings, we just go for the different funds. Now it makes things a little bit easier for us because we know like some funds are less valued than others. So we usually try to get rid of the ones that are less before we dip into the ones that are more. Because the ones that are more are eventually going to shock you. Once you get to that 4K, that 5K, 6K quota, and you trade in a bunch of robots and you find out that you had $6,000 worth of scrap in robots, it's a really, really nice feeling. And what's usually not a good feeling is this next tip, which is knowing when to reset the run. Now it's going to happen. You're going to go to your moons. You're going to get bad RNG. You're going to get gestures at the door immediately. And you're going to have those days where you go back to the ship with 200 scrap. And if this happens enough, you're not going to have enough scrap to meet the quota for 4K, 5K, 6K, and so on. And you do ever make it to one of the live streams, you can see that getting a 6K quota is going to take you like at least like 6 hours. So being able to identify like, hey guys, we've had multiple days where we had 200 scrap and below. I think we should just reset this before we put in too much time and end up getting nowhere. And most of the time it really sucks, but it doesn't suck more than putting in a lot of hours and just knowing that you're not going to get past 4K when you're trying to reach for like an 8K, 9K. And if you made it this far in the video, you should probably consider leaving a sub, because more than likely you're probably enjoying the content, and I don't blame you. But pay attention, because these next 3 tips that I'm about to say are probably the most important of this whole video. And number 8 is going to be learn from your losses. Now sometimes there's not much you could do. Like if you just get really bad RNG and every moon's eclipse and you have to reset the run, there's not really so much to learn from that. But when something else goes wrong on the run, whether it be from you or one of your teammates, learning from that mistake will make the next run so much easier. So communicating with your team either after every day, after every time you trade in at the company, or after every run itself, whether the topic be good or bad, learning something from each day or each run will help your game sense when it comes to reaching higher quotas. Because eventually you're going to experience every single thing in the game and you'll know how to deal with it, what's the best way to deal with it, and what's the safest way to deal with it. And for this next tip, I touched on it a little bit in the intro of the almost 8K quota video, but it is still one of the most important things to do on a high quota run. And that is trading in as close to the quota number as possible. And this one is pretty simple, but still so important because every bit of scrap counts at the end. And if you watch us during any of our super high quota runs or videos, we trade as close as possible, and sometimes we get it right on the number. And if you haven't experienced this yet, take my word for it. At the very end, once you're trading in like as much as you got and you know you don't have enough to hit that next quota, I said this once and I'll say it again, every bit of scrap counts. So make sure you're saving as much scrap as possible. And this last and final tip is the most important to me. And it's so important because the game we play, you have bad days, you have good days, but no matter what happens, this last tip is keeping up the vibes. Because it's bound to happen. You're bound to have days where 3 of your teammates die so fast that you're able to get 2 pieces of loot and bring them back to the ship. Or someone's going to mess up somewhere. It might be you, it might be your teammate, but things are going to go wrong. But progressing the game and like poking at those negatives and just kind of keeping that energy going, it usually ends up with negative things happening. So keeping the positive energy and the positive vibes flowing even throughout all the bad, trust me, it helps not only you, but your teammates' mindsets get locked in and get those higher quotas. Now, hopefully you see this video and you apply the knowledge that you got from it and you're able to hit some higher quotas. But even if it doesn't help, I really do appreciate you guys watching me. I've been having a lot of fun on Lethal Company, and I'm really excited to see where this game goes. And it means the world that you guys pull up to the live streams, you leave likes, you leave subs, and you just support the content. So thank you from me. And for now, that'll be all until the next video.